What is up, everybody? Welcome into a live edition of the KC Sports Authority podcast over here on YouTube. I'm your host, Keegan Russell, with my partner in crime, JB Merker, also joined by Austin Eckert and Jay Lasso KU on Twitter. We are here to talk some KU football with you guys tonight. We have a lot of our own takes to get off, of course, but we also want to hear your guys' questions and takes. So feel free to smash all those comments in the comment section below. List any question you have. We have a couple other guests hoping to join us throughout the live show tonight. So again, feel free to drop a comment in the section below there with any question you have about football. And if we get into it, we might talk some KU basketball here in a bit as well. But fellas, let's get started here. First off, thank you to everyone joining me tonight. Can't wait to hear everyone's takes now that it's been a couple days to work through the loss, I guess. Not that we're probably feeling that much better today than we did a few days ago.
Nope.
But yeah, KU's 1-2. As we enter conference play, it's a very grim look in Lawrence right now. Fans are pretty upset. Vibes are pretty low across KU football. We've had a lot of comments from the coach, from Jeff Grimes. We've had a lot of guys back and forth on the KU Twitter sphere, giving a lot of thoughts on how things have gone. And we're here to discuss all of it, dive into it, give our takes, and see if we can come up with what the problem is and maybe what the fix for KU football is. So I'm going to kick it over to you guys. First question up I have is how are we feeling a couple days later from where we were post game Friday night? Anything changed for you guys so far?
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm still pretty heated over it. I mean, I try to compartmentalize these feelings of just hatred for KU football right now. How we thought the season was going to start tremendously better. I mean, we thought for sure 3-0. I don't think anyone was questioning we would be 3-0 prior to the season starting. To be 1-2 is not only a disappointment, it is panic inducing because guys, we looked awful. We looked so bad in the last two games that I just question now, what do we do moving forward? Certainly that's what we're going to talk about tonight, but I know from looking at KU Twitter, there's a couple things that people want to see. I think first and foremost, people want to see Jeff Grimes fired. I don't know how soon we could ever fire a guy. I mean, it's only 3 games into the season, but is that enough? Have we seen enough of a sample size? I mean, we didn't see a whole lot in Lindenwood too, because Lindenwood was Lindenwood. That's a different story. They're way worse in terms of a level of competition, and our starters only played the first half. So it's like, okay, great. We had the Lindenwood game. If we take it out, we just don't count that. I mean, we looked pretty bad. Any serious or semi-serious competition that we've faced up to this point has gotten our best and ran away with it. Pretty freaking awful start to this season. And I mean, the feelings of being the complacent, kind of just always perpetually sad KU fan of, half a decade ago or a decade ago plus. We had all these years where we just had loss after loss after loss, and we were just kind of like, all right, whatever. We lost a game. It pains me to say I'm starting to get back into that mode. Well, I guess we suck again. So I don't know. I mean, I have faith that we can turn it around, but my expectations moving forward for the rest of the season are completely in another direction. I think we would be lucky to get to a bowl game. But Austin, what do you think, man?
I mean, I think KU's way better than that still, despite the 1-2 start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at the game, last Friday, and I joined on the space for a little bit. You guys heard my voice when I hopped on, and I felt pretty dejected. And I had a hard time going to bed that night. I don't think I went to bed until like 2:30, 3 o'clock because I was just like up and awake thinking about how KU lost that football game. And it was a complete shock, because I thought that KU played extremely well in the first half until JD's first interception. And then that touchdown that they gave up at the very end of the first half, I mean, baffling. Like you don't like our defense has played very well through these first three games, in my honest opinion. But like you can't give up plays like that, and you can't turn the ball over to set up opportunities like that. And what hurts the most is that KU played better than Illinois and UNLV on paper, but the only difference was the turnovers gave up points, and it led to opportunities resulting in points for both Illinois and UNLV. I mean, you take away that pick six, KU beats Illinois, and you know, I mean, with the UNLV game, it's like take away the turnovers, much different game. Maybe don't leave the defense on the field for 9 minutes. Try to find a way to get off the field. That's been another problem that we've seen KU have so far, and obviously a lot of speculation right now about just like how the team is responding to adversity and those things. I think the fan base is definitely worried about how the team is responding to losses or bad things happening during the game. Because I mentioned this a couple of days ago on my Twitter. That that was a problem when Lance Leipold first got here, and that was something that he wanted to fix. He wanted to fix the attitude of the team, and despite what happened in the previous game or in the previous play during the game, whatever that might be, like he's been working on trying to get the team to keep pushing ahead, keep focusing ahead, and doing what you need to do to get better. And like last year, we saw them have that in every single game. I feel like, and I know we didn't play well against Texas Tech. That might have been our worst game of the season. I know that KU got blown out by Texas as well, but that game was weird in itself. But they played well, and Texas just ran away with it. But like all of last season and every single game that we saw KU play, they were going to play for 60 minutes no matter what the circumstances were, no matter if they had turned the ball over, no matter if somebody got hurt, no matter if something happened, whatever it might be. But the thing is, we haven't seen them have that type of attitude the past two games, and like it definitely is a shock to me because we've seen them do that consistently now. And but at the same time, despite the fact that we haven't seen them have that type of attitude, I do believe that they'll get back to their normal selves. And I know we're going to get into the West Virginia game and things that KU are going to need to do better moving forward and all that. But I mean, tough situation to be in right now, in tough circumstance. I think also in this situation, you find out who the real fans are and you find out who the real supporters are as well, because, lots of people like to jump ship, at this point, or, like when something like this happens, when you have a start that you don't expect to happen, you sometimes see people jump ship and be like, all right, I'm done with this team. And you also see people who are like, no, let's continue to be positive. And then you have people going, oh, well, we're 1-2, lost UNLV, Illinois, just being all upset and whatnot. Like I feel like right now we're figuring that out, I guess, within the fan base, especially with the amount of hype and all that stuff surrounding the team before the season. We're in a tough spot, but I actually do feel confident that things will get turned around. But like I've got to see it to believe it, because right now I don't believe. Like I've got to see something, and I've got to see it this weekend to really believe that they can do something this season.
Lastly, let me kick this to you, because Austin, I think, made a good point there about, we're going to see who the real fans are. And you get a lot of interaction with fans on Twitter every day. What's kind of the pulse of the fan base from your perspective right now?
There's a lot of frustration. I mean, there's, uh, people are definitely ready to give up on the season already, which is it's sad to see, but at the same time, people have to realize how far this program has come, like where it was at. Kind of my my theory is, you know, it's almost like you go through a breakup. How long does it take you to get over that breakup? So with KU football, we weren't bad for a couple of years. We were bad for like 15 years.
Yep.
And how many fans did KU football run off in that 15-year period?
Sure.
I mean, a large amount of them. You don't just regain those fans back by a couple of good years. It's going to take, I mean, honestly, and Kansas wants to get where Lance Leipold wants it to be, and his wife, Kelly. Um, it's going to take probably another 15 years of consistent, at least, winning 6 games or more every year. So I think KU is kind of a pivotal moment here because you have a new stadium that's being built. You don't even have all the funding for it. And then all of a sudden you have this dream season, right? The media is pumping out this dream season. ESPN, Kansas has the best chance to win the Big 12. Kansas has the best chance to one of the best chances to make the playoff. Then all of a sudden we start 1-2, and so the media is pumping all this stuff up, and then KU starts 1-2, plays two. These are two good teams that we played. They're not bad teams.
Yeah, one's ranked and the other's on the outside looking in, and they're both
Yeah.
projected to be top 25 next week.
And they're both undefeated. So I mean, they're not bad teams. But 1-2 isn't where everyone thought we were going to be. And so immediately, once we get to that point where there's any sort of disappointment, we, as KU fans, PTSD settles in, right? Just like if your ex cheated on you, okay, and you immediately think, oh my gosh, she's texting on her phone. It must be some other guy. You know what I mean? Like, just your brain immediately goes to like the worst case scenario. And so right now, KU fans are thinking, oh, here it goes, another 1-11 season, because we've had more of those than we've had winning seasons. So, yeah, I mean, it's important though. It really is important, and it's important for everyone to understand this, that Kansas football was bad for 15 years, and it's not going to change overnight. Doesn't matter if you have a couple good years. What Lance Leipold has done is great, but what he's done in the 4 years he's been here can be lost in one season, and that's what worries me, is that we could lose this momentum just because the expectations were so high, and it would be easy to lose that momentum because of those expectations. So I don't know. The team's got to figure it out. We got to get some fans back on track. Fans have to understand that we need to support this team regardless, because we have no other choice. You support the team or you don't support them,
Yeah.
and everything in football is just never going to be great. Like, the ball is rolling. We have to go, you know what I mean? Like, we have to support them. And Lance and his wife need to understand that it's going to take time to get fans. It's going to take 5 to 10 years to get fans to show up consistently, even for just a 6-win season. So everybody has to come together and realize this is a process, and to just keep supporting.
Yeah, and that's why I thought the ill-timed tweet or fake tweet, whatever, by Kelly a couple weeks ago, it just didn't feel like it was important to do that right now, because you drop an embarrassing game and then you followed up with a second one. Of course, the fan base is going to be ticked off, and now there's going to be frustrated on even filling the seats next week. And the fans were certainly going through it this weekend. And one fan in particular, I'm looking at him right now, Mr. Brayton Turner. Welcome to our roundtable. Thanks for joining us, man. You were going through it in your guys' post-game live a couple nights ago, and man, just it's been 3 or 4 days now. What's the mind shift for you now? Are you still ticked off? Is there any optimism for you? What are you feeling now a couple days later after that loss?
Yeah, it was just one of those things where the Illinois game I can let slide. They made some mistakes. A couple bounces didn't go our way, but to lose the same way back-to-back weeks against teams that we are way better than on paper and were better coached. And so it felt like they lost the same exact way back-to-back weeks, where weird turnovers, weird decision-making by JD, obviously the fumble that no one in the stadium could recover. And then, so yeah, the Illinois game I could let pass, but that's just not what good teams do. Obviously, KU's ranked preseason, and everyone had these hopes. So good teams find a way to win at least one of those, and you should win both. And so yeah, I'm still just a little cautious because if they're in a close, tight game late, I don't know how confident I'm going to feel in them winning those games. But honestly, if you win this weekend and really all their aspirations have to do with Big 12 play, like these non-con games really might not matter. Like, yeah, those thoughts where they lost late in games could maybe creep up in the future in a game in Big 12 play, but their whole goal is to go to the Big 12 title game, to compete for a Big 12 title. And really, we talked about this game in Morgantown being one of the toughest games on the schedule. So if they can find a way to go there, squeak out a win, I don't care what they win by. I don't care if they win 2-0. Like that is, I would say, second or third toughest game on the schedule. Iowa State, K-State, and West Va, especially being at West Virginia, and they're going to be ready to go. Like one of these teams is going to be 1-3 after Saturday, and that's wild to think about. But if they can just find a way to squeak this game out, I think the fan base will have a ton of confidence. And then you come back home the following week, and you should have a good crowd. But I've definitely calmed down a little bit. But yeah, I was pretty fired up on Friday night. That pissed me off.
B-turn Adam Sullivan, who maybe he'll get to join us later this night too. He just hit me up and said, "Hey, ask B-turn this. How many tickets would you have to give away next week to ensure 30,000 people show up to Arrowhead?"
I know, because at that point, like, what really is your goal on the season? You would have to probably win out in Big 12 play to even make the Big 12 title game. That'd be 3 straight losses. And then, yeah, it's not really that appealing of a game the following week. So, man, they really need to find a way to win to have a nice crowd. But yeah,
if we did lose, does it even get to 15,000?
That's what I'm saying. Like, obviously they want fan support, but what would be the fan base's mindset? What would be the team's mindset, knowing that you have to win out? I guess like later down the road, if Iowa State, if they'd won a ton of games going up to that, that'd be a nice crowd, KU fan wise. But yeah, I don't really know what you would be playing for. I mean, making a bowl game would be tough at that point, really.
Yeah. Any of you guys join us right now, thank you so much. Feel free. This is a live Q&A. We've got our roundtable going tonight. A couple other guests might join us throughout the show to talk about the problems KU football has and maybe some solutions. So if you're joining us, feel free to leave any questions or comments in the chat below, and we'll try and get to them. So Chris, thank you for joining us. First question I have for you, or I guess next question I have for you guys, is what do you think the biggest problem on the season has been so far? And throw out Noah, I know, who always checks out a lot of our stuff, and big follower of Ain't No Seats. JD has to make better decisions. Is that the number one cause of concern so far this year, JD, or what do you guys think that glaring issue is?
I would venture to say that's probably at the very top of the list, because as much as the plays are designed the way they are, and as much as Jeff Grimes is involved in how our offense looks, or the coaches are involved in how the offense looks. The coaches are not the guys on the field. Okay, we need JD to read the situation a little bit better sometimes, and look and see, gosh, could that safety just make a quick little hop and skip 10 feet over and pick off my pass? I mean, because that's happened a couple times. It would be really nice for JD to make those better situations. And unfortunately, to Austin's point a little bit earlier, those turnovers have been the difference in the games that we've been seeing. And it's really frustrating. I mean, we're getting to the point where there's jokes. I don't even know if they're jokes anymore, but there's jokes on Twitter about how we need Cole Ballard to come save us because we need to bench JD because it's that bad. That's what people are saying. I haven't been so quick to say that on Twitter, but I have been quick to say that I'm not a Kansas fan anymore. We all know I'm joking, but kind of, sort of. There's
You're definitely the emotional fan of the group for sure.
I 100% am, and I'll defend that. We've got a lot of work to do, and I think JD has a lot of work to do, shaking off the rust from being hurt so long. I mean, he's got to get back in the swing of things. We threw up Twitter Spaces after the game, and I think one of the things I had mentioned was like, it just kind of sucks that college football doesn't have a preseason like the NFL does for people to kind of shake off some rust and get their legs underneath them and actually start producing from week one officially. It feels like JD has those growing pains, that rust that just isn't shaking off, and it's really become a problem.
Yeah, that's like I think I'm curious to know from your guys' perspective as well as anybody listening and what you guys have seen on Twitter, like how much of the blame is on JD versus how much of it is on Jeff Grimes. Like I find myself during the games incredibly frustrated with JD, but then after I feel myself trying to defend him and that it's the offense, it's the setup, it's Grimes. So yeah, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on that. Who do you put more blame on for the offensive struggles? Is it JD or is it Coach Grimes?
Yeah, I mean, the play calling's not creative at all, the schemes. And I mean, JD, I wouldn't say he looks uncomfortable, and I don't think he looks hurt either. Like, I think he's moving around pretty well. He's taken shots the last 2 weeks, even on the ground, just getting hit. So I feel like if he was hurt and worried about obviously his injury history and getting hurt again, I feel like he wouldn't be as willing to run. And honestly, if you take those picks away in late first half in both games, you win both those games. And those decisions just seem so out of character for him because he's a guy that hasn't turned the ball over much at all since he's been at KU, and he's a senior. Like you're in the other team's territory driving, pretty much have points on the board. Well, I guess the UNLV one, the Illinois one was we were way backed up screen. And yeah, Casey missed the block, but the throw is not there. No one's open. I don't know why you make the throw. Skinner even jumped on the screen. So that pass wasn't even accurate. But the one against UNLV was one of the worst throws. Honestly, both picks are one of the worst throws I've ever seen from him. The one before half, Arnold dropped the pass right before, and then you try to fit a fucking laser right into quadruple team, quadruple coverage, and no one was open. I don't know what he was seeing, but they ended up running it all the way back to whatever. Um, so it was just unreal, and I don't understand it. Like if there's nothing there, just throw it away. And worst case, you're punting it going into halftime, but you give them 7 free points. And I don't know, dude. Like all of his picks have been so weird. I think he's thrown what 5 or 6 more picks than touchdowns. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe people have been saying that Grimes is kind of telling him who to throw the ball to before the plays, and that pick after halftime was just all time. He just stared the receiver down for 10 seconds and tried to fit it into a window, and the linebacker was just right there. And I don't know.
Reading
It's
his
just,
eyes.
yeah, it's just
Yeah,
so
like
uncharacteristic from him.
he's become predictable. And that's why I'm like, I don't know, is it his regression? Is it Grimes' offense, like you said? Is it, to me, I mean, we're going to get into it, Grimes and Zabrowski, but right now, the way things are is Grimes is on the field. He's making the play call, sends it up to the booth to Zabrowski. Zabrowski reads it down to Jalen. So by the time it gets to Jalen, it's gone up and back down. But the rumor is from other people as plugged in saying that the way Grimes calls plays is that he's basically telling him, hey, this is the play call and this is the read I want you to make. And so is Jalen just sticking to that? Is it, JB, you said you don't think he's able to read defenses this well this year and work through his progressions. And that's very much could be the case. I mean, this has looked very different from Kotelnicki's offense as far as the way the play calling goes. And that's why I like, for me, I'd say like 60-40 on Grimes to Jalen. Like obviously Jalen's got to play better. Jalen can't be out there making the plays he has. But he's also got to be in a comfortable system. And if your offensive coordinator isn't doing the necessary things to make him comfortable, whether that's maybe the verbiage, not the right verbiage, getting the O-line protection right, there's a disconnect there. We're going to get into the press conference from yesterday. I thought there were some interesting things Grimes said, both good and bad. But yeah, Chris, he's got a couple of things here. Yeah, offensive play calls, how many wide receiver screens? Can't stand seeing those anymore. Please compare O-line compared to last year. Obviously, you lose a couple of guys with Nowitzki going out, some shuffling around. I think the offensive line hasn't looked that bad. I think they've been decent, but I mean, even rotating, you got a new center. Cable Dude's gone from the right side to the left side. It takes a little while for an offense to gel on the line there. But I mean, the run game's been strong. Even when there's not a hole, they find ways to get there. Maybe it's the pass protection's been a little slow. I haven't dove into the hard analytic numbers on that just yet to see there. But yeah, last. So what's your thoughts there? Do you blame more on Grimes or putting more of it on JD right now?
Uh, I mean, Grimes obviously is the easy one to blame because when you look at our team and what Jalen has done while at KU and the games that he's played and how good he's looked, really the only difference is we have a new offensive coordinator. So immediately you're going to go and say, okay, it's got to be Grimes. And it's not just, I mean, Jalen has looked bad, but there's receivers missing blocks, tight ends aren't looking great. Offensive line has actually looked great, but they also ruined that game at the end of the game for the UNLV game. We had a chop block on the other side of the line, which was completely unnecessary. The guy wasn't even going to come near the play. We had a 4th and short, got the first down, went from 4th and short to 4th and 17. And then right after that, the same guy that I think that did the chop block let his guy, run right past him, and JD had no time to do anything.
Yeah, it's back-to-back weeks. Jalen can't even get the throw off at the end of the game to have a chance.
Yeah. So when you look at stuff like that, like to me, it's like, okay, yeah, if Jalen throws only 1 interception a game, we're probably 3-0. Let's be honest. So yeah, there is a lot of fault on Jalen. But when you're having your entire offense, who is basically compiled of a bunch of seniors that are looking bad, making mistakes that they are not used to, making, then you kind of have to look at, okay, this is a coaching issue. And this didn't happen in the previous years. Why is this happening now? Well, I mean, so Jeff Grimes is kind of the guy. So I think, yeah, 60% Grimes, 40% Jalen Daniels.
Yeah, and to get into, sorry, JB, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think we all miss Coach K.
Oh, for sure. Even in the bowl game, I thought Zabrowski did a fine job, but you could tell the offense was still different. Let's get into some of the comments Grimes had in the press conference. Last week after the Illinois loss, I think we can all agree that was just a pitiful response in the press conference of, well, basically the way I took it was, well, if these guys practice harder and if they remember that they practice hard, then we'll play better on the field. And it just felt like a cop-out answer to go, well, if these guys, practice harder, then I'll call a better game for them, or I'll put them in a better situation. And so it just felt like he wasn't a guy taking ownership or accountability to the failures. This week, I think we've heard a little bit more accountability on his part. I mean, he mentioned things like, hey, it's my job to put these guys in positions to succeed. That's what I'm here for. It's my responsibility to get them to do that. But I also felt like a lot of his comments yesterday, without saying it, it basically felt like he was saying the players were the ones responsible for the on-field execution and that the things going wrong are on them. Like he called out, he didn't really call out Jared Casey for doing anything wrong, but he basically was like, I got to make sure that, I've got 4 tight ends here to work with, and maybe I'm asking Jared Casey to do things that he's not skilled at. And I'm putting him in a position to not succeed. Even though Jared Casey's the experienced guy, he's been here, he's done that. Maybe I need to put him in a better situation. Maybe, Kieran needs to be out there further, Cardell. And then he mentioned things, with Jalen, just the fact of, hey, the biggest takeaway I had when it coming to him and Jalen, clearly you can see that the relationship is, I don't know if it's fractured, because I don't know if it was ever there to begin with, but they're not on the same page. And, Grimes basically said, I don't think it's the play calls. I think it's, a few bad throws here and there, but he at one point kind of mentioned that maybe there's something emotionally or psychologically going on with Jalen that's affecting his play. And to me, that just says 2 things. One, you're not in tune with the players, which is your job. It's your responsibility to know your team, but it just feels like you're kind of pushing away blame. I mean, to me, he just hasn't done enough yet as a coach to take responsibility for the horrendous look the offense has had so far. And that's from all levels. I mean, offensive line, pass protection's been bad. Really, the only thing that's worked is turning around and handing the ball to Devin Neal or Daniel Highshaw. So I want to get into some of those comments. I don't know if you guys had a chance to check out the press conference yesterday, but just thoughts on Grimes from a coaching perspective, not taking enough responsibility, and to me, just it feels like he's pushing more of the blame outwards than taking it upon himself.
Yeah, he's hardly taken any responsibility at all the first few weeks. I mean, I know the starters only played one half against Lindenwood, but even I felt like our offense didn't look very sharp that day. You got a Quentin Skinner fumble. JD was off on a lot of deep bombs. So yeah, the offense just isn't clicking at all, and that's really what I'm worried about Saturday. Like, yeah, I think we can win the game, but I don't have any trust in the offense just being crazy explosive and JD just airing it out and picking them apart. West Virginia's secondary stinks, but I don't feel confident in JD going out and throwing for 300, 400 yards and just tearing up West Virginia. And that's what is frustrating. Like you said, the running game it's been unbelievable. I mean, Devin Neal's as good as anyone in the country. Highshaw's been good when he's played. I don't know what's going on there, but if you're that successful on the ground, you would think that would open up so much through the air. And it feels like receivers aren't even really open either. So the everything should be open through the air. And I'm a little nervous Saturday because that is West Virginia's weakness is their secondary. And I don't trust our air attack right now. And they're pretty solid in the trenches. So I'm a little nervous they could slow up the run game. And JD's gonna have to be really good Saturday. So
yeah. Anybody else got thoughts on that press conference from Grimes?
So I do want to say something. So as far as his mentioning of the practice, like the Illinois game, after that game, talking how he was just going to show them the practice film and not the Illinois film. And so that leads to the idea that, okay, they haven't been practicing well. But then he mentioned something earlier before that he was talking about how good they were practicing, how good practices were looking. So he's kind of contradicting himself. And another thing I want to bring up too, in regards to practice, I don't know if you guys had this same thought. So I remember them talking about how OJ Burrows was like the player of fall camp, right? And the defense was looking great. And immediately my first thought was to be positive and say, oh, great, our defense is looking great. That if we get our defense playing well and we have a good offense, we could really do something. But in the pit of my stomach, I thought, which happens to every KU fan, I'm thinking, well, what if our offense isn't great? And what if our defense is benefiting from just poor offensive play? And I think that's what we're seeing right now. Is that's what's happening. And the fact that Grimes wasn't able to identify that, because if he would have identified the issues in the fall camp, maybe we're not here right now. So I think he's failed us and failed the team in that way as well.
Yeah, and I think it might have been Matt Tate or Michael Swain asked him something along the lines yesterday of, have you been able to identify the issues? And he had like a long pause before he even answered. And he was like, well, there's not a lot that stands out to me yet. We just got to execute better. And I'm like, that again, to me, that says you don't know your team very well. And, he talked about how Zebrowski's got the relationship with Jalen and how maybe, we'll get into it. Maybe Zebrowski's on the sideline and Grimes goes up to the booth because he's got that relationship with JD. But Zebrowski also has it with basically the entire offense. Because again, we bring everybody back essentially. Just a few pieces missing, but basically the entire offense is back. And the only thing that's different is you brought in a new guy that has no connection or relationship to the players. And to me, that's very obvious right now. He's not providing answers to the questions he's getting. He's mostly just pushing back blame and just saying, oh, well, we'll figure it out. Like he can't even identify the problems. Yeah, he can talk about some of the problems, but he hasn't really given any analysis on here's what we're doing wrong. It's okay. It's fixable. We'll get this right in practice. And I think that's concerning to me. But Jayhawk Focus, welcome into our roundtable, breaking down the frustrations of KU football. Right now, we've been diving into Grimes versus JD, who's more to blame. But what thoughts do you have on the blame game here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
Sweet. Honestly, the blame is, in my opinion, is 50-50. I do think Grimes' play calling has been absolutely atrocious, and then the execution of the play calling has been terrible as well. But I do not appreciate him not taking accountability for anything. He is the coach. But I do think we all have to remember that Jalen has been suffering through major injuries the last few years, and honestly, I don't know if he'll ever be his original self. So he's having to deal with that. And the fact that Grimes hasn't been utilizing the right players at the right times, not only to help Jalen out, but just to simply help the team out, is very worrisome. Like, we have a top 10, top 5 running back in the NCAA, and you give him 11 carries. There's an issue there in the thought process, in my opinion.
Let me ask you guys this. Do you guys think Jalen is healthy? And if so,
No.
how healthy? Because
Not
I
close.
can't quite decide if I don't know if his mechanics look different. I think his delivery looks a little slower this year, and maybe his reaction slower. But he doesn't, to me. I haven't seen anything physically that looks like he's changed the way he's playing physically. So maybe it is a mental game.
I would
I don't-
say. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think he's healthy. I don't know. I'm optimistic in that respect, but I think he is healthy. I just think he's rusty more than anything, and it's just sad that. I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but yeah, this guy has had a lot of time off of the field, and yeah, he's a little bit older now, which you would think at still a young age overall, you would think he gets better with experience, but he's got to be on the field to be getting better with experience, and he's been off the field for a majority of last season, and I just can't help but think he's really just shaking off a lot of rust. That being said, I don't think the rust is gone at all. I think it's going to continue, and it's going to be a question of is he ever going to be fully back? I mean, back injuries are scary, and he can be he can be fully pain free right now, but Keegan mentioned it earlier, but his mechanics could just be off, and that's absolutely true. I think he's healthy, but I just think he's not the same player that he was 2 years ago when we thought he was the savior, and it kind of was the savior of KU football. Unfortunately, right now up to this point, he's not. It's sad. You know, we log on to KU Twitter, and we're seeing all the memes about us missing our guy Bean. He was, man. I mean, how much better does this make him look in the grand scheme of things? And the revival of KU football, how much better does Bean look in that storyline? Because it's starting to develop into a nasty situation for JD.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jalen's healthy too. I mean, JB, you kind of said it for me. His mechanics definitely look maybe a little bit different. But I feel like at the same time, too, people are also reading into this maybe a little bit too much. I mean, like, yeah, he hadn't played in a while. Sometimes, quarterbacks will change, their throwing motion, from time to time to help them play better. That's another thing I guess that he's working on if that's the case. I mean, like, if he wasn't healthy enough, he wouldn't be playing right now. I mean, like let's understand that. Like, if he wasn't healthy enough, he wouldn't be out there playing. I mean, like, do y'all remember last year when Cole Ballard had to go in and play against Kansas State and Jason Bean was fully healthy, but he didn't, practice enough and all that stuff? Like, I'm just trying to say, like, if Jalen wasn't healthy enough, he would not be
wouldn't be
playing
out
right
there.
now.
Yeah.
And I feel like the coaching staff has done a pretty good job with, like, keeping players out and making sure that they're on the right track to recovery from injury. And, even if that means, like like, for example, going back to the K-State example, like Jason didn't practice much or maybe little to none. And, he was healthy to play on Saturday, but still didn't play because he didn't practice enough. Like I feel like the coaching staff has been pretty consistent about, injuries and stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I think he's healthy. I mean, you go back to the 2020 season, and I'm sure we've talked about this in the past. Like, I just remember, that season he took like hard hit after hard hit after hard hit. I mean, he was getting crushed in every single game, and he kept popping on back up and kept going at it. I mean, we've definitely seen him run the ball quite a bit, which that's exciting. He had those 2 rushing touchdowns last week, and I don't think if he wasn't healthy enough, I don't think they would run those plays. But I think he's healthy. I just think it's just a matter of him being comfortable. And I'm sure we'll get into this too, but I think that, because this was talked about in Jeff Grimes' press conference, him going up to the booth and Zabrowski going down on the field. I'm not exactly sure why we changed that. Now, there's always a reason for everything, of course, but I mean, like if Zabrowski was on the field and, we saw the success of Jason Bean, all that stuff. I mean, like it makes you wonder, like how much does Zabrowski's presence on the field attribute to, the performance that, JD and Jason Bean and Cole Ballard, the performances that they had last season? Like, how much does that attribute to it? Like, I think it might have had a lot to do with it, and I think it certainly did. And again, I don't know why we made the switch. I honestly don't like that at all. I mean, why not have Z out there on the field with Grimes up in the booth? I thought that's basically how we did things anyways. I mean, just with college football in general, that's usually how it is. You have
Typically,
the quarterback on the field and offensive coordinator. Sometimes they'll be on the field, but like, you got to have the quarterback coach out there on the field too, especially when like something's going wrong. You need him to like be on the field with you. He could be talking through Jalen's headset, all game long. But like if you have him out there on the field, I think that makes him feel a little bit better because like he's the guy that Jalen's going to run to, and he's going to be like, hey, you're all right. Just keep going at it. You're doing great. Like he needs Dabrowski out there on the field. And,
so let's go there.
I certainly hope we see that this weekend, or if not in the near future. But I'm sure we'll get more into that.
Yeah, let's go there now because for those that like know anything about Zabrowski last couple of years, he's a high energy guy. I mean, he's on the sideline with a bright colored shirt, his hat on backwards. He's full of energy. He's been with Jalen step by step for 4 years now and has the relationship there. So the fact that he's now not on the sideline, I mean, no wonder Jalen looks uncomfortable. And I think Grimes said it at the beginning of the year. I think that's a lot of it. Grimes said at the beginning of the year he wanted to be on the sideline so he could be right there with his guys and have a feel for how they're reacting, responding. But I think he's also, like I mentioned it earlier, I think he's had plenty of times where in his comments post-game or during the weekly press conference, he's basically said, hey, Zabrowski knows those guys really well. My job's to get us all set up. So clearly he's admitting to the fact that he doesn't have that relationship there. So if they're not comfortable around Grimes making those decisions, then send him up to the booth. He mentioned it that they've talked about it and that he might have a better opportunity to have a more bird's eye view and get a feel for what the defense is doing. And then you get Zabrowski back on the field. And I feel really good if that happened this weekend, we'd probably see a change instantly. So let me kick this to you then. Is that the first move? Is that the best move you would make? Like if this was up to you, if you're Lance Leipold, and we haven't even gotten to that, why is Leipold not done more to step in as head coach? But so if you're the one making the decisions, what is the move you think needs to be made to turn this thing around before things get way out of control?
I mean, first off, I would have hired Coach D as the offensive coordinator. I mean, if you're going to make him co-offensive coordinator, you make him offensive coordinator. Coach D actually was his offensive coordinator for a couple of years and won a couple of championships with him at Wisconsin Whitewater. So he can do the job. He knows what it takes. He understands Andy K's offense probably better than anybody that was, because we lost the offensive analyst and offensive coordinator. So they are gone, but he knew the offense because he was there through it. So, and I would like to know, like, behind the scenes, like, was it that Leipold didn't think he was ready, or was it that Coach D just wasn't ready for it? He just didn't want the job. So, I mean, it could have been that as well, but I would have started there. But the fact that Grimes was hired and we're at where we're at right now, I think that's a good first step. is to get Coach Z on the field and Grimes in the booth. Um, I didn't like that move from the very beginning with Grimes on the field. It didn't sit well with me, and now we've obviously seen where 1 and 2 offenses not look great. So I think that is the first move you make. As a coach, when you first bring in an offensive coordinator, or when you hire anybody, um, you have to be patient, and not just because you have someone that's not doing their job, um, but you have to be patient for the future of your program. Because if you hire an offensive coordinator and they come in for 3 or 4 games and you fire them, then it doesn't look good for any future offensive coordinator. So an offensive coordinator, when they come in, they want to see that the coach is going to back them even through adversity. And also Grimes doesn't. I mean, we expected them to struggle a little bit. Maybe not definitely not as much as they have this year, but you have to expect a little bit of struggle. It's not going to be as smooth as what it was. Um, so we're seeing what happens when you bring in a new offensive coordinator. So I think this is a good start. Um, you know, I would give Grimes a few more games, and I think really I'm more concerned about his understanding of the players, how
Yes.
he how he deals with the players, how he gets them uh, to rally around each other. Is he going to call plays that's going to help Jalen get going? Whatever play that might be. That's what I'm more concerned about. I'm not so concerned about like the actual play calling. I want to see how he can bring this offense together and make them start playing better.
Yeah, and to me, it's adjusting that offensive play calling to make your quarterback comfortable. I mean, again, he said in the press conference yesterday, him, Z, and Jalen had conversations, and they all came to the conclusion that they need to figure out how to get Jalen more comfortable with the system. And I think even Leipold said that. I want to say it was last week. Mentioned it too, that there still is that adjustment period where Jalen hasn't played a ton. Grimes gets here in the summer, and they have to all figure out how to get on the same page and make Jalen comfortable. And to me, that's why I think it's so frustrating is you have an incredibly talented player like Jalen that we've seen plenty of game tape suggesting that he is capable. Maybe it's just the fact that Kotelnicki was just a mad genius and knew how to perfectly set up the offense to get the most out of JD, and that could be the answer. That could be the case. But when multiple people are saying Jalen's not comfortable, but there's no fixing to it yet. Like that's what has me concerned. And to me, that's coaching. Like there's only so much you can go to Jalen and say, hey, you got to just figure it out. At some point, you got to go, what do you need from me to help you out? And let's identify that and let's do it. And yeah, I think you're right. The answer's got to be Zabrowski goes to the sideline and Grimes to the booth, because that's typically the first thing you see anyway before anything drastic happens. I mean, Jalen's not getting benched. They're not running Ballard out there yet. I don't think we're to that point. And then in focus, I'm going to kick this over to you because my next question then is, how much worse would it have to get, or how much more engaged from the fan base would there have to be to force an offensive coordinator change altogether, or even just force Grimes out of play calling duties? He sets the game plan and it's just all on Z. So focus, what's your thoughts there? What would it take for the fans that are crying out saying, hey, fire Grimes? What would it take to get there?
A loss this Saturday.
That's it. You think 1-3? 1-3 does it?
Absolutely. Especially if Devin Neal does not get his carries. If you're not handing the ball off to a top 5 running back in the NCAA, you're done. I don't know what the thought process was of even hiring him in the first place after the failure that Baylor was. Like, what are you doing here? Should have stayed in house with Coach Z, and it's just extremely frustrating. Imagine Oklahoma State not giving Ollie Gordon 20, 25 carries. Like, what are we doing? Especially when you have a quarterback who is injury riddled. Like, no offense to Jalen, but he's injury riddled throughout his history.
Yep.
And you keep putting him in the line of fire of everything. Like, the offensive line is not fantastic, but you keep calling these ISO running plays for him. You keep making him throw deep. You keep making him throw consistently. on 3 straight downs, and you have a running back that can run the ball, and not just Devin. He has a stacked running back room. What are you doing?
And they haven't even thrown us. I don't even think they've thrown any. Well, he did throw a slant last week, and he was like 12 yards behind Luke Grimm. But they haven't even been using the short game there. It's been all bubble screens. But I guess this last week, Devin did get 23 touches on the ground, and Jalen got 11, and they didn't use a single other running back. I know Highshaw was out, but Morrison didn't even get any run time there. And obviously, the second half play calling changed dramatically. Like once UNLV figured out Jalen couldn't throw the ball, then they could drop guys in coverage, and it made it even more difficult. But they still like have this nerve of getting away from what's working. And I know Grimes said this. He said, "Hey, if you look at all of our possessions, a couple of them obviously went poorly, whether it was a turnover or a holding call or the chop block there at the end." He goes, "But the ones that we didn't have something like that happen, we scored." I'm like, well, yeah, obviously, if you have everything going well, you're probably going to score. But
Well, round of
why?
applause to him.
Yeah.
I mean,
So good. Thank you, John Madden.
Congrats.
Rest in peace. But why? Like, why is it that obvious to you that the bad things are what are derailing your drives? It's obvious. So if those bad things are happening, why are they happening? Yes, a lot of it is on player execution, that's for sure. But a lot of it too is on coaching to get you prepared for the reads. So, Chris mentioned it in the chat earlier, is that the offensive line struggling this year. The fact that they have a different center, so now Jalen's got a different center. So they're maybe the verbiage with Grimes coming in is different too on different protections. And so they're having the slow adjustment. And I think Lance said it yesterday, and I thought this was a really great point, which I took as a good sign, but also very frustrating. And he said, we just got to figure out how to react and respond. He said, we're going through adversity, but we're not responding. We're going back out there and doing the same thing. I said, okay, great. You've identified something there. We need to respond. Now, the players can respond, but it's on the coaching to get you in that right position there. So I guess my next question for you guys is, at what point do we start holding Leipold accountable for the failures of the offense and his lack of stepping in and forcing some action? Like he's a great like general manager type coach. He's going to get feisty on the sideline with the rest when he needs to. He's going to get fired up. But for the most part, he's a fairly hands-off guy in the day-to-day of the game, unless it's calling a timeout. But at what point do we go, hey, coach, you got to do your job and step in here, because you've got, like you said, you've got probably the best 1-2 running back punch in the Big 12, if not the country. When clicking, you've got one of the most dynamic dual threat quarterbacks in the country. So at what point do you go, coach, you got to figure out how to get your coaches to put these guys in position, or you need to step in and make the change yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to steal this one too. I just think, hey, Jayhawk Focus had the same answer to the other question. It's if we lose against West Virginia, if we go 1-3, we're going to be looking like there needs an overhaul of the entire team, the coaching staff. I think full on panic, if it's not already set in, full on panic is going to ensue. I know West Virginia is a big game. As we look ahead to West Virginia, I'm realizing this now, just in this conversation here. The West Virginia game is going to be the most pivotal game for this season as a whole, because I think a lot of things are still at play here. I mean, you have the optimistic KU fans are still saying, hey, we haven't played a Big 12 game yet. We can still win the Big 12. We just have to start winning now. True. And West Virginia is the first team on the docket. We have to win that game. I think a lot of our panic goes away if we win that game. And I think our panic skyrockets just through the roof, out of the stratosphere, if we lose that game. And, from a fan perspective, I think I saw this on Facebook. KU has gone out and posted about, hey, single game ticket sales are available at Arrowhead, and we're going to take the fees away. And if you open up the comments on Facebook, they're ruthless, right?
Desperation.
Everybody's like, oh, KU's so desperate. Oh, like, well, how about you try winning games, right? These are the responses of the casual KU fan that's going on Facebook and replying back and saying, we need to win some games before we start paying all this money to go into a game at Arrowhead and watch it live. And it's a little sad because, yeah, you would hope that, you have a little bit more of a solidified fan base that doesn't necessarily need to see wins to go and see a game. But seeing all those comments, it's scary, man. It's scary to see all the KU fans that are just checked out entirely on this season after just 2 losses. Imagine if it's 3. We are screwed. The West Virginia game is the most pivotal game, and I can't say it enough, for the entirety of the rest of the season. If we lose it, just throw it away. If we win it, we have a chance to salvage it and make a bowl game, things like that.
And I want to add on to that. Leipold, I mean, he's got to be held accountable now. Like he should have been held accountable after the Illinois loss. So, and he's the head coach, so he should be. But we also have to remember that he hasn't really had to hire any big coordinators
ever
in a long time. Yeah, I mean, he had Andy Kolomicki. So he's had Coach D for a while. Then he had Andy Kolomicki.
He's had Borland for 10 years.
Yeah. So his defensive coordinator he's had forever. So he really hasn't had that type of adversity. I think with Buffalo, he had the same staff the entire time there. So we're talking about the first time coaching an FBS team that he has had to make that big of a hire. So, the whole process was probably new to him because he wasn't used to it. And he's great at that continuity, keeping his staff together. But now we've seen, okay, maybe this is the weakness of Lance Leipold's is identifying a good offensive coordinator that fits, his staff and bringing them in as a brand new person who has no experience with, his staff. So, he should be held accountable for something like that. Because really at the end of the day, he should have, if it was his decision not to promote Coach Z, then we should look at that and say, okay, that's questionable. That's on Lance Leipold. Maybe all these struggles you could just take it back to that moment of him hiring somebody outside instead of promoting somebody inside the program. So, but yeah, I think he's held accountable now. And also you look at the penalties, the mistakes. This is not a Lance Leipold team. He spent all this time building this team up to not make mistakes. We're not we're not the most talented team in the Big 12. The reason we've been winning games is because we don't make those mistakes. We fight through adversity. We react the right way when bad things, when things go wrong. That's how the teams have been the last 3 years. This year, that's not happening. And I think that goes back to the head coach.
Yeah, 100%. At the end of the day, the buck stops with the head coach always. And again, I didn't dive in fully to his part of the press conference, but I mean, he is taking some responsibility and saying, "Hey, we got to get in there and figure out how to get everybody right and on the same page, and get to a hard week of practice and get focused." Because they are one loss away from not just losing more of the fan base, but keeping the fan base from throwing any more support the rest of the season, which is not good. Austin, you're giving us daily updates on that stadium they're building, and the more we lose and the more fans start turning their attention away from football, the harder it's going to be to finish the stadium and to keep asking for more money to dive into these projects. Now, West Virginia this weekend is a great bounce back spot, like Al mentioned there in the comments. Could be one of the most pivotal games of the Lance Leipold era. The Hawks have a great bounce back game here. West Virginia is not a good team. Their defense is terrible. Yes, they put up a lot of points against a couple teams, but their strength of schedule there was pretty bad. Their secondary is one of the worst in the Big 12. So to me, this screams a game that should be a get right game for Jalen. So I guess to have some optimism here, this is a great spot to be in. But if they also come out and drop another third game here where the offense just looks really bad, I mean, we're already mostly in panic mode as a fan base, but we're going to go full panic mode because if Jalen can't look right against this defense, I don't know how you expect him to get right the rest of the year. But before we dive into West Virginia, just real quickly, for those of you that haven't seen this yet, we're on our way to 1,000 subscribers, and we've got a Jersey giveaway. Now I know, maybe Jalen's not your favorite player right now on the team, but we have a signed Devin Neal jersey and a signed Jalen Daniels jersey we're looking to give away this season once we hit 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So if you haven't done so yet and you're one of the few watching right now, hit that subscribe button below, share the podcast, share our channel with a couple friends. We would love to get to 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible, preferably before the season ends, so we can give away these jerseys. And if things go well, Jalen bounces back, and maybe that jersey becomes a little bit more valuable than it looked 6 weeks ago. But yeah, let's talk West Virginia. What do you guys need to see this weekend, not just personally to feel confident and optimistic that the season can be recouped, but what do you think the fan base needs to see from this team offensively, outside of just obviously they got to win the game? But yeah, what do the fans need to see to have some confidence again?
I think clean football is the very first thing. Limit your turnovers, take care of the ball. I mean, man, Al, you said it, man. We made some gut-wrenching mistakes. That's right. I love that terminology, gut-wrenching, because it's true. I mean, you watched the fumble. Oh man, that fumble recovery that we could have had that bounced
The
around.
entire team had their
The
hands
entire
on
team.
it.
My gosh, I mean, is that not the most KU football of all KU football instances that summarized probably the 15 years of horrid KU football play before Jalen Daniels and the team really started to pick everything up in the last couple of years? I mean, that play just demoralized everybody. We need to clean up this act here. We need to clean up the play on the field and just hold on to the ball. I mean, everyone's trying to. I remember watching a breakdown. I can't remember who said it though. It was but someone had mentioned it. It just seemed, gosh, I want to say it was Derek Johnson, but it just seemed like the guys in specifically with that fumble recovery, the guys were trying to pick it up and run. It's like, no, you don't have to just pick up the ball and run with it. We don't need a fumble recovery.
Everybody wants their ESPN moment.
Yeah, I mean, just fall on it and get us the ball. That's what we care about, because even despite the turnovers, despite the interceptions, we still would have trusted in Jalen Daniels and the rest of the offense to get points on that drive after the turnover. But it didn't happen just because we didn't have the
Can I say
wherewithal
something?
to go for it. Yeah.
I just want to real quick, just about that fumble. That fumble recovery is that's what happens when your offense is struggling. A defensive player. So in a normal situation, if you have your offense is doing great, you're not struggling, your defense is probably going to more than likely make the better decision to just fall on the ball. But when your offense is struggling on the defensive side, you're going to try to do everything you can to either recover that fumble and get them better field position or score a touchdown so your offense doesn't have to get on the field. So the defense is well aware of how the offense is struggling. So I think that to me is a almost like the offense is struggling, so it's trickling down to the defense as well.
I guess I'll hop in here now. Going back to Jalen, he looked like himself in that first half last week, and then, the play calling just didn't, look the same after the first interception. Oh, crap. But, JB said it, the biggest thing is playing, clean football. Can't throw interceptions, can't fumble it either, because we've, done that in the first 3 games. So, winning the turnover battle is going to be huge. West Virginia is a team that also turns the ball over. So, maybe KU can take advantage of that. If maybe we can get an interception. I mean, I think Garrett Green threw a pick or 2 last week, and I think he threw 2 of them, actually. I think there's optimism, and I think that there is every reason to believe that maybe the defense can come up with a play or 2 this weekend. And I think that's exactly what KU is going to need to really, give them that confidence, especially in this type of game. And I don't know if I brought this up yet, while we're live. I think we did talk about this off the air, but I wanted to mention the 11 a.m. kick. KU has not had an 11 a.m. kick on the road. Got to go all the way back to October of 2022 against Baylor. And obviously, everybody knows what happened in the Baylor game. But I mean, KU still played a decent game, but there just wasn't enough time left, and But it's going to be interesting to see how this year's team plays in an 11 a.m. game. This time on the road. Last season, we only had 2 11 a.m. games. Both at home. It was Oklahoma and Texas Tech. We played well against Oklahoma and Texas Tech. Jason Bean gets hurt, and we're kind of in a pickle, and it's just a low-scoring game, and Tech gets a game-winning field goal. But so that's something I'm going to be looking for. How does this team play at this time of the day on the road? Something that they haven't done in a while. We're just going to have to see what happens with that. And West Virginia. I think KU's offense, they can. I think get a couple of passes under JD's belt. Give him some slant patterns over the middle to Lawrence or Quentin or Luke. One of the 3 guys. You have Trevor Wilson too. Which I don't think we talk enough about Trevor Wilson. I mean, the dude is very quick, with his feet, and he can catch the ball pretty well. Why not give him the ball a little bit more too? I mean, I could go on and on and on about the receivers, but I think that they're, like the defense for West Virginia, they're kind of solid up front. So if Devin Neal can find a way to get through the O-line and get a few yards here and there, I think it'll be good. Establish the running game. The offensive line is definitely going to have to win up front for sure. If they can do that, I think this offense will be just fine on Saturday. But if Z is on the field and Grimes is up in the booth, I mean, if we don't play well after that, then what? I don't know what the
then
problem.
We riot. We get a group outside the Anderson complex, several hundred deep, fire Grimes. I don't know what it takes, but we riot. Because this can't go on. We cannot drop 3 in a row with the offense not even able to put up 20 points.
How many signatures does a protest get? A petition online. How many signatures is it going to have to fire Jeff Grimes if we lose again?
I mean, I know there's some out there already, and they've got to have plenty.
Oh, God.
How many weeks did KU go into the 2019 season before they fired their offensive coordinator, before they made that switch? Was it 6 or 7 weeks? Is that right?
It was about, I want to say the 5th or 6th game of the year.
Okay. I did want to bring this up real quick because I know some of you guys were talking about, just when do we make a switch? When do we pull the plug? I remember last season, I think it was Lance Leipold's press conference against Kansas State, and he talked about Andy Kolnicki and Brian Borland, being together with them for as long as they did. Of course, Coach K goes to Penn State this past offseason, but at that time, he was answering a question about hey, would you be surprised if you went back in time and realized that these 2 would stay by your side for the next 10 plus years? And he was talking about how it would be a surprise to him because there's so much change, coaching staff wise and all those things. And he was talking about Andy Kolnicki and the struggles that they had at Buffalo. And I think he brought up something about I'm trying to think of the right term here. I think it was one of his assistants or something. And he was asked if he was going to make any changes to the offensive staff, and it had mainly to do with Coach K. And he said no, because he believes that things take time to build and grow and things like that. And, just based on that, I don't know if Coach Leipold is the type of coach to be quick to fire people. Just based on that, I mean, he believed in Kolnicki when times were tough, back at Buffalo and so on and all those places. But I mean, my thing is, I just don't think that's going to happen a quick, firing or whatever. Now, should he have stuck with Zabrowski? I don't know. I mean, Grimes came from a situation at Baylor where nearly all of the offense for Baylor was they were the majority of it, the offensive unit for Baylor last season, they were freshmen, sophomores. It was a very young offense. And of course, you're going to have inconsistencies when you have a young offense. We saw that back in 2021. I mean, how many inconsistencies did we have left and right? I mean, we had I might have been the youngest team in all of college football that year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, like, you're going to have hiccups, you're going to have bumps and bruises, when you're trying to run an offense with so many young guys, right? And Baylor decided to pull the plug and fire him. And I think at the time I definitely felt confident in Grimes coming in because of what he's been able to do with his track record and everything. And had a tough outing at Baylor in his final year there. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I just want to see the switch happen personally, and I just want to see how that goes. If not, if it works out, then I think our situation is figured out. So
all I know is
what
a
happens. There's a lot to look
Grimes offensive led team has lost 15 of the last 17 games he's been an offensive coordinator in, something like that, which is awful. So
let's fire him now.
he might not be the answer, but before I want to start wrapping up here and finish out with predictions for this weekend. But before we get into predictions, any of you guys have any other takes you want to get off, questions you want to ask the group, anybody else in the chat? You got anything you want to fire off at us before we close out with game predictions?
I do want to add on to the, when is it time to fire Grimes? Just to set expectations, what Austin said, I don't think Leipold's going to fire Grimes. I think it's going to have to get really, really bad because at the end of the day, KU fans are showing that they're already willing to give up on the team. We're sitting at 1-2. So if we lose another couple games, the fans are already gone. So why are you going to listen to what the fans have to say as a coach? He's going to try to do what's best for the program, which is to try to ride it out. I mean, this is not an ideal situation for Grimes. I mean, it's not easy going from one team to another team, when virtually most of the staff have worked with each other and know each other. And you're kind of the odd guy out. So it's not easy. So Leipold, I would be very surprised if he fires Grimes at all this season. And if he does let him go, it's probably going to be after the season.
Well, and even if he did go midseason, I'm looking at the schedule here. It would have to probably come after Arizona State because then they go into the bye week before Houston. And if they drop, I'd say 2 of the next 3 and the offense still looks the way it has, maybe that's a spot that either Grimes is gone or they at least change it to where, hey, Jalen still doesn't look comfortable 6 games in the season. We're switching to Z's calling plays and switching that up. I don't know. But yeah, I think you're right there. I don't think they fire him midseason. It would have to take even more catastrophic failure in the next couple of weeks for that to happen.
I mean, that's a good comment right there. I mean, I mentioned it right when we started, when we started this whole thing. I said, this week we're going to find out who the real fans are, because the real fans are going to support this team. They're going to back them no matter what. Yeah, 1-2 shouldn't be in this position. I think everybody knows that, and no one's more upset about this circumstance than the coaching staff and the team. Obviously, the fan base is very upset as well, but I just know that the team is very upset about the start, and they want to get better. And we saw B Turner, kind of talk about them being disappointed and their willingness to want to bounce back and have a really good game. I went back and watched JD's highlights against West Virginia, and I know it was 2 years ago, and I know it's a completely different game. I know he's a completely different quarterback, but I mean, man, he was on something in that game. He looked so good. And some of the throws he made were just unbelievable. He was throwing it over the head of shoulders of defenders to his receivers. I mean, Luke Grimm goes up and makes a really nice catch at around midfield at one point. I mean, he played so good in that game. So that was really the moment where, we found out that hey, we got KU's got a legit football team and they also got a legit quarterback. So now 2 years later, here we are in this predicament, how good's KU football? Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And this is JD's chance to turn it around and remind everybody that he's still the good quarterback that everybody knows. And again, we saw that in the first half, and then it went away after the first interception. And I said something about this a couple of days ago. He needs his in-game confidence back, and
he needs to play with some fun again. He doesn't look like he's having fun out there. And prime JD, like Al mentioned, prime JD was having a good time. Win or loss, he was out there having a good time and playing with energy.
With Coach Z out there, yeah, I mean, like, get him out on the field. I just know that's going to make him feel comfortable. Like, even when things aren't going right, like, he's still going to feel good with Z out there.
Yeah, it's like you said earlier, when you can like put your arm around the guy's shoulder and go, "Hey, this isn't working. What are you seeing out there, bud? What are you seeing in the defense versus me calling down to you from the booth? Hey, JD, what do you see out there? I don't know, man. I'm seeing 3 defenders on me when it looks like there's one. But he can push around. All right, bud. Take a chill pill. Just take a breath.
Yeah.
Let's relax. What do you see on there? What do we need to adjust? Let's go and do it." So yeah, I think you're right. I mean, to kind of summarize basically this last hour and 15 basically is Z needs to get down there on the field alongside Jalen and get back in there to get his confidence back, because maybe to the casual fan or the fan that's not as plugged in, maybe they didn't realize how significant that relationship between a quarterback coach and the quarterback is. I mean, Grimes even said in the press conference, he goes, yeah, Z's the guy that spends all the time with him. He goes, he sees him way more than I do. And I'm like, okay, well, there's your answer. The guy that sees him every day is the guy that needs to have the input. So that's my last take.
Oh my gosh, just do it.
Just get,
you know, like Steal Blue. Do it. Just do it.
I did not understand.
Get that out of my system.
I did not understand the mentality of Grimes, bro. Like, you're going to come into this program that was 9-4 last season. You saw the highest high since 2007, and you're just going to completely wipe it off the table by taking away his quarterback coach. Just completely wipe it off. I'm in charge here, and then you flop on your face like an idiot. I can't believe that this guy is working for KU. I seriously cannot. And, I mean, I don't know what you guys consider healthy, but I do not think Jalen Daniels is 100%. His confidence is up and down throughout the game, but I think physically, if you watch a game last year or 2 years ago and then watch the last 3 games, he doesn't look the same, in my opinion.
So do you think it's mentally then instead of physical? It's mentally physical. He's not there? You think it's physical?
Well, physical and mental affects each other. If he's not feeling right physically, his mind's not going to be right. And if his mind's not right, he can eventually hurt himself physically. And so the problem is they keep throwing him into these situations when it's not the right decision. Like, they keep calling multiple pass plays in a row going deep. You know he can't throw that far. Like, it's I don't know, it's just laughable to me at this point. And even though you're switching the coaches where they are in the stadium, if it's a loss, Grimes has to go. I don't care how close the loss is. If there's a loss, he has to go. And, I mean, it's all going to come down to the play calling and the decision making on the field. But I mean, I'm worried for Jalen because, I mean, you know, he does have the rust. I don't think he's healthy all too much.
But I'll say this regarding his health, though. Like, so I know these are 2 completely different things, but like, I was in a car accident a couple of years ago and broke my femur bone, and it's an injury that completely, I mean, derailed my life. And much like I would say the back injury for Jalen. I mean, a back and a femur bone, 2 completely different kinds of injuries. But like, you can say like I'm 100% to just about anybody, but like, I know deep down, like, I adjust. I like have to change how I sit down in my car. I have to change how I like kneel down onto the floor to, like, I don't know, like, play with my 7-month-old. Like, I just, you know, there's things I do that are just different, that I'm compensating for the pain that I know I'm going to face if I put all my weight on my leg, you know, and if he goes full motion into that throw, does that tweak his back a little bit? Probably does. I mean, you know, to the naked eye, I look very healthy in terms of my, like, how I walk. But like, I know deep down there's still that little
there's certain steps that you notice that you favor a little bit more. Yeah. I totally get what you're saying there. I mean, that's why I don't know if his mechanics look that different, but I feel like his delivery has been a little slow, and like he doesn't trust himself to get the
Mm.
read quicker. So yeah,
I
maybe some
I
of it's
think
the balance
he's
of that physical. To me, I think it's more mental than it's physical. I think Austin, you said he's completely lost his confidence. He doesn't have his guy on the sideline to get it back to him in a one-on-one scenario. And I think he knows he's got the physical tools to go do it. But yeah, you get beat up like that. I mean, if you guys saw his podcast in the off season, that podcast he was doing out in LA, like he said, he goes, guys, this was way worse than most people thought it was. Like there were days I could not get up and move and I was in so much pain. And at back, like you're so tender, you twitch up, you feel like just the slightest of movements makes you tense up. So yeah, that could be part of it, but I think he's also had a lot of time to get back into it. And if this was the case, like I'm not saying he's not healthy or he is healthy, but if he's not healthy, you would feel like you've got to see some of that in practice to where they would be able to say, well, clearly Jalen's got a mechanical issue of, he's not trusted. Like I think we saw with Jason Bean. Jason Bean took one big hit a couple years ago, and then the guy never put his body on the line the rest of his career. Every time he had the chance, he'd run out of bounds or slide early. And I'm not going to blame the guy for it because he
Oh
still
my
won us
God.
some games. But you take a hit like that and it changes how you approach it. So maybe that's it. Maybe Jalen's approach, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, has been affected by that injury. But yeah, end of the day, he's got to get right, and Jeff Grimes has to do his job as an offensive coordinator to figure out how to make him comfortable to run the offense and put him all in positions to succeed. So yeah, let's wrap up here. Lasso, do you got any final thoughts on anything or predictions for this weekend?
Yeah. So for prediction, I think probably not going to like my prediction. I, 'cause I think this is going to be a battle of two teams that are extremely desperate. Okay, because you have West Virginia, who has a coach that is really kind of, I mean, the fan base wants him gone. They wanted him gone before last year. They have a big year last year, benefited from an easy schedule. They got lucky on a lot of games, did well. I think they gave him an extension. I can't remember, but I don't know. So there were still fans that were kind of not sure about that. Well, now obviously starting 1-2, losing to Penn State, and then also losing to Pitt State after being up 10 points in the fourth quarter. So a lot of fans are upset, and he's kind of on his last leg, right? So that staff is going to be extremely desperate. They're going to do everything they can. And then on this other side of it, Kansas, we're desperate because we're at the pivotal point where we could lose a lot of fan support, and we still have a $500 million stadium that we got to pay for. It's not even paid for yet. So, you lose that fan base. As we've seen, it takes a long time to build that fan base up. So, yeah, both teams are going to be desperate. I think honestly, even though I think we will lose 34-31, I think there's going to be some positives in this game. We're going to see us play the best game that we've played all year, but we're also going to see West Virginia play the best game that they played all year. Which is unfortunate for us. We're at West Virginia. It's never easy to win in Morgantown. Doesn't matter what sport you're playing in. But
Westfall,
yeah,
11 a.m. is scary.
yeah,
No
it
matter what
is. So
sport.
that's why I do have us losing 34-31. We'll be dejected, but I think there will still be some positive from that game.
Austin, you're in physical pain over here from
Dude,
that
I
prediction.
can't fathom us losing to West Virginia. I really don't. Now, I think he does make a great point, though. Like, it could be a loss for sure, and we might end up 1-3. But I don't know. I mean, like, I said it last week, if we lost to UNLV, it'd be a travesty, and here we are.
We said it
You
the week
know,
before too.
so I mean, like, I don't want to repeat that, obviously, but as far as the West Virginia game goes, I mean, this has to be the game where they get right. Should have happened, last week. Should have happened against Illinois, really. But West Virginia, like I said, that they're solid up front on defense. If we can just establish a running game, I think KU will be fine. Get Jalen Daniels comfortable. Hopefully, if they have Z out there on the field this weekend, hopefully it'll get him back into his groove. Back to him looking like the JD6 that everybody knows, and get him confident. Don't turn the ball over. Run the ball. I mean, like, there's nothing else to say about the offense, really. Just take care of the ball and run the dang ball too. Keep doing it. I mean, because that's been working pretty well, I'd say, especially when you're consistent with it. Because we saw that in the first half last week. And then defensively, I mean, like I said, West Virginia is going to make mistakes. They've made mistakes too. If you can get Mello or Kobe to come up with an interception, even OJ as well. I mean, I think it was OJ's birthday today, or I believe it was yesterday.
Kobe's.
Kobe's birthday was yesterday. OJ's birthday today, I believe, right? I think
it might be.
Might be, yeah, because I saw Coach Leipold's tweet earlier saying happy birthday to OJ. But if it is his birthday, happy birthday to OJ and happy belated birthday to Kobe. Those two guys are phenomenal players. But back to the West Virginia game, I think if we can just stay consistent offensively, get in that groove that we've been talking about, that we're all anxiously waiting to see, I don't think there will be a problem offensively. But I mean, West Virginia is definitely going to try and get after JD all game long. So
it is OJ's birthday. So yes, you are correct. Happy birthday, okay, cool.
OJ. But yeah, just win the battle up front, take care of the ball, run the ball too. Offense should have a good day. As far as the defense goes, just get after the quarterback. They got two really good running backs in Jaheim White and CJ Donaldson Jr. Donaldson's the one that's going to be running, downhill, and he's going to be one trying to get that extra yard or two in those, maybe short yardage situations. And then Jaheim White, I mean, the dude's really fast. He's a talented player. He can get around the edge, and he can get you a few yards when you really need it. So the defense up front has to, disrupt the run game as quickly as they can. If they can disrupt it early, then I think all game long they'll feel comfortable about slowing down the run game because, again, those two running backs are going to be very good. And as I was watching the West Virginia Pitt game, the highlights, those two guys had a pretty solid day. I don't remember what the stats were, but I think both of them had a touchdown each at least. But, defend the run game. That's going to be very important, and try to come up with a turnover or two because I think, West Virginia might give you a turnover or two. So take advantage of that and just don't turn the ball over offensively. And I think KU wins this weekend. Again, win or lose, I think, if we do lose this game, we will certainly find out who the real fans are. And honestly, it would be a shame if the fan support decimated, significantly. And I get it, starting off 1-2 isn't the start that everybody expected to have. We get that. And, but at the same time, no matter what the situation is, you got to back your team and you got to support them because that's what they really need. They don't need the negativity. And plus, I mean, they're not listening to the fans and what, everybody out there has to say. I mean, they're certainly not listening to us and what we have to say, right? Because they're focused on trying to beat West Virginia this weekend, right? But I mean, something's got to happen this weekend, and I think a win's very important. And if you want to beat TCU, I think you got to beat West Virginia because this TCU game next week, not sure when the kickoff time is going to be. I really hope it's a 2:30 p.m. kickoff or later. For TCU, I do not want to get up early in the morning and drive out to Arrowhead for an 11 a.m. game. I don't want to do it. But if you're going to make it an early kickoff, just at least just make it a noon or 1 o'clock game. Do not make it a 11 a.m. game, but that won't happen because, TV stuff, money, all that, but
it's all about the ESPN Plus product, baby.
I got KU winning this weekend, 34-27.
High scoring.
I like it. This is tough. Okay. I'm gonna keep it pretty simple. I do think KU wins. I think the staff has probably heard enough from the fans and they're probably hitting it hard in practice. I'm gonna go with 27-24 KU. And I do want to mention we did have a comment earlier about the fan attendance. Now, that'll be for the TCU game in Arrowhead, which is the first one in Arrowhead out of the 4. If we lose, probably going to be 10K, I think, at most. I don't know. It could be. It's tough because it really is tough to predict. We've never really had to,
Depends on how pricey
play.
those tickets are going to be.
And they're kind of up there. But it could be upwards to. I mean, if we win, I mean, it could be 30, 40. I think there could be a big revitalization in KU fans if we do win this game. I just it's Big 12 play. Like, we can put the stuff behind us from before. So that would be my prediction for the game: 27-24 KU.
Yeah, I mean, like, back to the what was it that you said? Geez, I forgot what I was gonna say. I missed my point there.
Fan attendance.
I think fan attendance. Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like the fan attendance, like, it would be a shame, because of, how far this program has gone, and that, like sometimes I feel like the fan base keeps forgetting that, like, things like this take time to build. I mean, KU was at the very, very bottom, and like now they're not top 25 right now, but they were preseason top 25, going into the Lance Leipold's fourth year. I mean, doing that in 3 years is pretty incredible. But I guess if there is a positive to take away from, the 1-2 start, it's that KU fans are actually upset that KU's losing the game. It's not like, oh, we lost. I kind of talked about this a little bit last week when we were previewing the UNLV game. But like, you can tell that like KU fans are now like they are legitimately upset when KU loses. Like, even if the game's close, like nobody cares about that anymore. Like, I kind of sensed that last season, for example, against K-State. Rivalry game, you had to play a third string quarterback. People could have easily been like, oh yeah, we're not worried. We almost beat him with Cole Ballard. It's a moral victory. I mean, Lance Leipold doesn't believe in moral victories. I can tell you that much. And and for him to turn it from people clapping after nearly beating Oklahoma in 2021 to everybody storming the field 2 years later after beating Oklahoma. I mean, but the fan support's got to be there no matter what the record is after Saturday. The fan support's got to be there, in my opinion. But obviously, you can't legislate fandom. You can't force people to continue supporting something, especially when things are going wrong. But all you can do is encourage it.
Yep, winning cures all. But okay, Jack, focus. What's your final prediction on this game, and then I'll close this out.
My final prediction on the game is West Virginia wins 28-24. I don't see how things change very quickly, despite Coach Z moving down to the field and Grimes being wherever he is. I mean, I think you'll probably see improved things, but it won't be that big of a jump, in my opinion. But we'll see. It's always hard to win in Morgantown, and with the struggles that we have, the team looks deflated. I mean, we were 9-4 last year, and they look deflated now, and it's going to be hard to bounce back from that. And I feel terrible for them because I don't know what it is, but I mean, I feel terrible that they, had such a great season last year for them. They come in here and they start 1-2 against two teams we should have beaten, and now they're going to have to go take a tough road game. And both teams are desperate. And, put me on fraud watch. But I
don't think you guys are wrong with your predictions there. I mean, you're really driving into what gives you hope that KU does turn the ship around right away and gets it right this week. And there's nothing on tape that suggests they're going to do it.
If KU, and I want to be clear.
Go ahead.
And I want to be clear, like me saying that KU is going to lose, I think it's going to be, even though it's a loss, and yeah, that's tough to see. I think there's still going to be, I think this is going to be the best game that we play. I think the problem is we're just going to run into a West Virginia team that's going to play the best game they've played all year. And unfortunately, the doubt there. So, yeah, I mean, I want to be clear, like, it's not going to be one of those losses where you look at it like, oh my goodness, you've got to be kidding me. It will be a loss where we still have some hope, even though it hurts. But again, at this time of year, we still need to win either way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
the pressure's on. I mean,
yeah.
you have half the fan base right now in disarray. If you lose this weekend, the rest are going to start calling for basketball season. You just better be ready for that because it's going to happen. And I hate saying that, but you can't go 9-4 one season and then the next season start 1-3 against teams that you are like you're a better team than those three. You can't do that, and it sucks because we need the fan support in Arrowhead. You need the support. You need the drive for the new stadium and everything. And now, if you lose, you're requiring a bunch of people to go out to Arrowhead an hour away to go watch another oh no, we might lose game. And so it's the pressure's on. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Well, let me end with some optimism here. Positivity. I think this is a bounce back game. I like everyone's thoughts on the game. West Virginia's playing desperate. They play good at home. I think KU's defense continues to show up. Borland's got them locked in. They're focused in. They're dialed in. May not be Kobe this time around, but somebody forces a big time turnover to put the ball back in Jalen's hands. And I think Jalen goes out there. Not only does KU win, I'm going, 225 plus passing yards, 2 TDs, Luke Graham, 100 receiving yards, Devin Neal, 100 plus all purpose yards, Highshaw and Neal, both anytime TD, which, if you guys haven't checked out yet, our game day
That's
gambles.
bold.
Game day gambles there. I'll have some betting takes this weekend, but always betting those two. Anytime the two of them are playing, I'm always betting anytime touchdown. But yeah, I think KU goes out and gets the dub this weekend because the pressure's on it, and if they want any chance of the season to be salvaged, they got to win this game. And I think Leipold will have them focused. I think they'll make the switch they need to at offense. JD will get out there and show that he's wore the rust off. So I got KU going 24-13. Not quite the offensive, juggernaut that they used to be, but I think they definitely get back to par of that. So I'll go 24-13. KU comes out with a big win. Heading into TCU weekend, we ride off another win, get back to almost 500 there, and kind of keep some hope alive for those that are teetering with their fandom this year. But thank you guys for joining us tonight. Those of you in here with us in the chat still, thank you for all of you that checked us out. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below. On our way to 1,000 subscribers. Would love to give away one of these signed jerseys here soon once we get to 1,000. So help us get there by liking and subscribing to the podcast yourselves and maybe sending it to a friend. And then thank you, Austin, Jayak Focus, and Lasso for joining us tonight. Love what you guys have on Twitter all the time. Look forward to doing more of this. We got, like I said, basketball season's coming up in a month, and I would love to do more of these to get everybody in here and just get some of the brightest minds in the KU Twitter sphere together to ramble off some takes. So that'll wrap it up for this one. Thank you guys for checking us out, and as always, rock chalk.
Rock chalk.